So in doing the meditation practice, I've come to see that it really does work to set it up in the beginning before you actually start to do the sit. And what I mean by that is it really does work to take a few moments and allow yourself to look at the answer to the question, why am I meditating? This is very important. You know, I have started to realize now when I work with the clients that I work with online, where I'm doing consultations about this work, I have found it useful in the beginning of the conversation to say, why are we here? You know, what is the point of our conversation? What is it that you are interested in realizing or accomplishing, or what result do you intend to produce? And that's really important because it really sets up, you know, it sets up a structure so you don't just wander around things, you can be more focused. The same thing is true with meditation. I think that the practice of meditation, the way we practice it in this particular teaching, it's really important to be clear why you're meditating. The meditation is a tool. You're using the meditation. And so what are you using it for? You know, what is the outcome that you're interested in? So it's very important to answer that question for yourself. And then the second step is to then imagine that what you intend to happen has already occurred. Really take the time to imagine it, and imagine in your mind's eye, what's it feel like for it to already have occurred? And I'm assuming when I say that, what's it feel like for you to actually be what you are as awareness itself? What's it feel like? What's that like? What's that like? And then how does the world look from there? Really allow yourself to imagine, how does the world look from there? How do you see yourself? How do you see other people from there? Imagine that as clearly as you can. And then let that go and begin the meditation practice. And when you begin the meditation practice, part of the way that we meditate is we don't have an intention. We're not meditating in order to. So now I've just contradicted myself, didn't I? Yes. That's right. And yet, paradox is part of the way reality is, right? So when we meditate, we forget the setup that we just did, and we just practice being present without any intended outcome. And we take some time to relax the body. We take some time to make sure the back is straight. We make sure we understand that in this practice, the intention is to have the body relax as much as possible, and yet at the same time be completely awake and aware. And in the way that we're practicing meditation, you may start with the breath to just focus your attention and maintain your attention for a few moments, and then let that go, and let the attention go wherever it wants to go. Because when you let the attention go to wherever it wants to go, you are now shifting away from being the one who's paying attention to the awareness itself, to the awareness itself. And so now as you sit and practice meditation, the practice is to be the space, to be the space, to be the field, to be the space in which whatever happens is happening without any interest in controlling anything, without any desire to hold on to anything, to stop anything, to change anything, letting everything be as it is, simply being aware and awake and alert and relaxed. And that's the practice. So let's begin. I think it's useful to stay tuned into the idea that what you're up to here is a non-dual experience, so that when you're meditating, for example, in the practice that we just did, it's typical for people when there's sounds coming into the room, especially if it's music, or if you can actually understand somebody talking or whatever. It's typical for people to hear that as that's separate from me, right? I'm meditating here and that's happening. And so I'm hearing that. And also there is this automatic reaction to it, like it's good or it's bad, or I don't like it, or I like it, or why don't that stop, or that's a distraction. That's processing it in a dualistic manner. You know, that it's there and I'm here, and so there's a relationship with it, and that relationship is a relationship that has a particular particular characteristics to it. On the other hand, if you're able to, at some point, experience a non-dual way of being, then it's not like I'm here and that sound is there. It's actually more like I am that sound. It's actually more like that what's happening, whether it's happening within my internal world in terms of thoughts, sensations, or feelings, whether it's happening in the external world, what would normally appear to be the external world, but that all of that is no longer the way it's occurring. The way it's occurring is that because in non-duality, the thing that makes for non-duality is your absence, right? Your absence. Because if you're not there, right, then all there is what's happening. That's the non-dual experience. If you're not there, then all there is what's happening, and you're happening. And you're happening as well as everything else that's happening, but there's no separate you that it's happening to. Do you follow that? So it's not like you disappear. It's not like you disappear in the sense that there's no thinking happening anymore. There's no emotions, no physical sensations. No, all of that's still there, right? But that's just what's happening, and it's no different than the sounds that would ordinarily be perceived to be outside of yourself. So if there's music playing or somebody talking in the other room and there's thoughts going on in your mind, right? All of that's happening, and the experience that you're having is that you are what that is. You are what that is, because there's nobody there to have the experience. You are what that is. And this is an important aspect of experiencing the truth, because the truth is a non-dual experience. And this is, you see, the thing is this. One of the things that I'm very interested in is the idea that in these teachings, and among the teachers that teach these teachings, and among the students that follow the teachers that teach these teachings, I think it's very important to be aware of the fact that as you listen to teachers teach these teachings, and you are aware of the students of these teachers, the seekers, you know, in terms of all of the humanity on the planet, there's a very minute fraction of that number that is aware of this stuff, you know, that has come across this stuff, interested in this stuff, practicing this stuff. And by the stuff I mean non-duality, I mean consciousness, I mean awareness, spirituality, however you want to, define it. There's a very minute number compared to the 7.5 or 8 billion people, however many people are left after the pandemic. There's a very small, very minute number, and then within that small number who are reading and practicing and following teachers, within that small number, there is a fraction of that number who actually experience non-duality, who actually experience the truth, who actually experience when you listen to students and teachers interacting, who actually experience what they're talking about. A small fraction. And I think this is important for us to pay attention to, because if that's the case, right, then we need to be looking for what makes the difference. What is it? What is the hinge? What is the hinge that turns? What's this turn on that has a person actually experienced the non-dual experience? When you're experiencing non-duality, you have a freedom and you have a power that you don't have when you're experiencing duality. And what do I mean by that? Well, what I said was that you don't disappear. You're still there, right? But you're not separate from what's happening. You are what's happening along with everything else that's happening. And within that non-dual experience, there's an awareness of the fact, and this is a little fine. This is a very fine point. And within that non-dual experience, right, there is a dualistic reality occurring. It doesn't make the experience non-dual. In other words, that doesn't mean that you're separate from it, seeing it. No, you're being it, and in the being of it, there is a reality occurring that's a function of non-duality. Is that too much? Is that, if I take that? Yeah. And within, so I'm going to say it anyway, and within that non-dualistic experience, in other words, you're not separate from it, you are it. And as you are it, within that it that you are, not separate from it, there is a condition occurring that's a function of non-duality. So you can address that, you can deal with it without being dualistic. You can deal with it without being dualistic. The difference was that you'll be upset, right? You'll be upset, you'll be seeing it in a way in which it's going to have you be so reactivated and upset, it's going to cause your cortisone to go crazy. You're going to become irrational, you're going to have difficulty functioning, you're going to be doing what they do on the news, starting to figure out who to blame for all this, right? And she's simply going to be present to what's going on with a clarity that you don't have, because she's not stuck in a reaction that you're having, being separated from it, and then can see clearly exactly what can be done and do what can be done, and that would be it. There wouldn't be, see, the difference is, and for her, it would still be uncomfortable, right? It would still be comprehended by her that this was a difficult situation and so forth, right? But not with psychological suffering. That's not rational. It's just dealing with it, it's dealing with it in terms of seeing what's called on to be done. So in that situation, one of the reasons that you wouldn't psychologically be upset is because you wouldn't have that reaction about, oh, I don't like this shouldn't be happening, why is this happening, this is terrible, all of that's all psychological stuff, right? No, you would just see, okay, this is what's happening, right? This is what's happening. Here's what actions need to be taken, right? And then it still may be uncomfortable, or it still may be uncomfortable, right? But there's a difference between the discomfort that you would experience that's a function of the physical situation and the discomfort that you would experience as a function of the state of mind that you were in. See, if you listen to your speaking, I think if I accept everything as it is, you see, there's you and there's what there is to accept. But in non-duality, you're not there. It's just what is what's happening. It's just what is what's happening. There may be emotions happening, right? But not for you as somebody separate from the situation. See, one of the things a brain surgeon needs to be able to do, even if he doesn't understand what he's doing and he's a real good brain surgeon, right? He's got to be non-dual when he's got your skull open. If he's got your skull open and he's really concerned about what he's doing and about whether he's going to kill you or not, you're in big trouble. And there actually is a famous neurosurgeon, I can't think of the guy's name now, but he created an institute in California, and he interviews a lot of spiritual teachers. And I heard him talking about doing brain surgery, and he said when he has done brain surgery and done things that were miraculous and incredible in terms of saving people's lives, that he was literally not there. All that was there was what was happening. And that's very powerful, and that's very freeing. And that does happen for people when they're driving race cars, or when they're being brain surgeons, you know, or when you're a top player on a football field. And they don't necessarily understand it that way, you know, in terms of this is something that if you understood what's happening when you're in this space, when you're in this consciousness, you would appreciate and understand that this is available at all times, and understand the difference it would make in all areas of your life. Some do. This particular brain surgeon did, and that's why he, you know, created an institute and interviews spiritual people. The brain surgeon is the patient. You see, when we're meditating, the sound, you are the sound. Right? If you are the sound, see, if you are the sound, can the sound distract you? No, it can't distract you because there's no distance. There's no distance. This is the reality of non-duality. You know, there's no distance, there's no space, there's no separation. It is very much unlike the world that appears to be the case. It's very much unlike the world that appears to be the case. That's why so few people experience it. Because the world that appears to be the case is so complete, you know, so complete, that it seems as though how could it be that this whole complete world of reality and agreement that everybody considers to be what's true, how can it be so that that's not the case? You know, it's easy for us to sit here and say, see how they are, but pay attention to your own mind, and I know you're not any different than I am, you know, that we do the same thing because we've been conditioned to be that way. Now, when you're in a non-dual, see, this is the thing, when you're in a non-dual experience, that stuff's still there. That stuff's still there, but it's not you anymore. That's what allows it to clear up. When it's you, you're identified with it, you protect it, you justify it, you know what I mean? Because it's you, it's you. But when it's not you, you don't have anything to justify or protect. It may still come up because you've been conditioned that way, right? But it just plays out, it disperses. That energy just disperses because it's inconsistent. It's inconsistent with the experience you're having now, because the experience you're having now, not being a separate self, is that you relate to everything that's happening as you. That's unconditional love. And that'll just naturally clean it up. Because one of the things that happens, and I was talking to one of my clients about this the other day, and that's why it's important. That's why it's important to contemplate death, because death is a sticking point for the separate self. It's a sticking point. But if you start to experience non-duality with any kind of consistency, there is no fear of death. There is no fear of death. And that allows you to take a stand. That allows you to do what needs to be done and not be afraid that that may mean that you're going to die. But I highly recommend that you spend time contemplating death, contemplating death. And when I say that, I'm not trying to be morose, because in terms of these teachings, death is not real. It doesn't exist. And if you spend time contemplating it and you really allow yourself to have that experience, it's very powerful. It's very powerful, because that in and of itself can put you in touch with a non-dual experience. The idea that there's no death, meaning, in a non-dual sense, meaning that there's no death because who there is that could die is not real and never was born. So see, you've got to get in the world of that and get out of the world of the other thing. That's the process. That's what you have to focus on, and the more you focus on that, the higher the probability that you'll make it through the gateless gate. The higher the probability that you'll realize what's always been true. And I say that because I want to be clear with you that it's the easiest possible thing you could do. That's what makes it so hard. And on that note,